We acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional lands of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation, and that sovereignty was never ceded. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.
We acknowledge that we benefit from the colonial structures and policies that remain in place today. We stand in solidarity with First Nations people and recognise their ongoing struggles in dismantling those structures.
During the First World War, strikes caused fuel shortages so severe that the Victorian government reopened the old brown coal mine near Morwell in the Latrobe Valley.
And the state government has outlined a long-term plan to ensure the Latrobe Valley remains viable as its economy moves away from coal-fired energy.
It's been the lifeblood of the Latrobe Valley for decades, but continual change in the power industry and the introduction of the carbon tax means it's time for a plan B.
It's a month tomorrow since fire entered the Hazelwood coal mine in Victoria's east.
Fire has been burning for weeks now, blanketing the township in a toxic smoke.
The housing estates are literally just 50 metres away, so when the wind blows in the other direction, they take all of that in.
The guillotine has finally come down on Australia's dirtiest power station, Hazelwood. It's caused jitters about electricity prices and raised questions about Australia's readiness for a low-carbon future.
We're not going to achieve net zero in the cafes, dinner parties and wine bars of our inner cities.
The Latrobe Valley's coal mines could be filled with water and made into a tourist attraction to rival Italy's Lake Como.
Welcome to Coalface. My name's Josie and Steph.
And I am Stephanie Sabrinskis.
Hi, Steph. How's it going?
Hi, Joyce. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I heard that you had a little bit of the old big C.
I did.
Wait, no, that's cancer. Shit,
Yeah,
I mean coronavirus.
I had the COVID, yes. I was very sick. I was out for 2 weeks, pretty much. Oof. And I still don't feel quite right.
You're just ready to talk about the environment and themes of art.
Look, when aren't I ready to talk about the environment and art? I'm always ready.
Honestly, peak COVID, you were sending me links to research.
Exactly,
So, do you remember doing that? You were like, COVID haze, being like, have you read this study? And I'm like, no, Steph. Also, you have COVID.
I kind of don't, but it sounds like something I would do. Yeah.
Hands down sounds like something you would do. We have a special framing for today's episode. I almost was going to call it a mini-sode, but you know what? It's so good. It's just an episode.
Just an episode.
Yeah,
Love
just
it.
a full, like a normal classic. Do we have enough episodes to be like, this is a classic episode?
Maybe. No, not quite. This is our 5th. So why don't you, for the people listening at home, how about you set up the framing? What's different about it?
Thank you. I feel like you've done this before, maybe 5 times. So you and I got to go because basically, look, I don't want to say, but I will. We're basically celebrities at this point. We're being treated to like the works essentially in our hometown of like Latrobe Valley area. We were so graciously invited by Latrobe Regional Gallery to come check out their exhibition, Hazelwood. Now, I know what you're thinking. That entire exhibition, it seems like exactly perfect for us, and I want to thank them personally for putting it on for us.
I felt like it was right at the right time that we needed to see this exhibition. Yeah. It just so happened. So maybe we're like manifesting
I think
reality and no.
Yes. So number 1, everyone go to the Latrobe Regional Gallery and look at some art. We'll get into the details of why that is important later in this episode, but I think number 1, this is a giant ad for the Latrobe Regional Gallery. So not sponsored, but definitely sponsored.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough to get to go on a little tour of this Hazelwood exhibition. So for those playing at home who maybe aren't from the area, we have touched on what Hazelwood is before. Steph, do you want to kind of just give us the overview of what, not the exhibition, but what Hazelwood means down here?
Sure. So Hazelwood was a power station that was decommissioned in 2016, kind of spontaneously, kind of not. There's conjecture about that, but everyone knew it was closing down, but no one realised it was going to happen when it did. Hazelwood was also one of the oldest power stations that was still operating.
It was crispy.
It was very crispy and filled with asbestos, I must say.
The bestos. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's fine. And also there's a mine, obviously, that Hazelwood mined from.
Let's set the scene. Do you want to describe for our fair listeners what the Latrobe Regional Gallery looks like, where it's situated, and like the vibe when you walk in?
Sure. So from my recollection, I believe that the Latrobe Regional Gallery used to be a courthouse or some kind of other historical building.
Some kind of municipal city,
city
hall.
Or the old police station. It
swimming
was,
pool.
Not a swimming pool, but
house.
it was like the courts or the cops or some shit like that. It's like an old historic building. It's 2 stories. You kind of, when you're driving into Morwell from the Rose Garden side, the first thing you notice is like a big white building on the right. And then there's like some kind of fancy metalworks over the top.
It's sculptural as a building.
It is. It is a sculptural building. Architectural.
People would say that.
Yes. So, and then you've got to walk, well, you know, if you park on the left-hand side, like we did when we arrived, you've got to walk down to the...
They have the full Josie and Steph experience.
They do, yeah, to the pedestrian crossing. And then you've got to hold hands as you cross the road, and when it's green, obviously.
And while you're holding hands, you've got to slip your middle finger up and then just stroke the palm of the other person.
Just to like get it. Is that a power play? Like it's...
Oh, no, it's just friendly.
Just friendly. Okay, cool. Yeah. Maybe that happened. Maybe it didn't. I don't recall. If you're kind of on a slight angle, you can see the entryway desk, like where the people sit and be like, hello, how's it going?
They're so friendly.
They are so friendly.
Yeah.
And then next to there is like your hand sanitizer station. So you can go to your hands. And then there's also like this little kids area where you can take your kids to like go make art in the art gallery.
What also strikes me when I walk in that building is the warmth of the wood. And I know like that it's always kept at a certain temperature because like art has to be cool or warm or something.
Do you perhaps know this from your time working at the art gallery?
Look, I don't want to say I have a conflict of interest, but I am basically the lord of all art gallery. No, I was a tech there for a short amount of time in the early whatevers. And I just remember that I never had to wear a jumper.
Nice.
We were fortunate enough to get a special tour of the Hazelwood Exhibition. Today's interview is with David O'Halloran, who is the senior curator at the Latrobe Regional Gallery. He walked us through the exhibition, and largely this recording that we're going to be listening back to is his extra information that he gave us about the exhibition. But as you know, Steph, because we were both there, he also raised some sort of really broader issues around like the importance of art, the role of art in changing minds, the role of public spaces. So we're kind of going to get deep into the digging into like the sociological kind of necessity of space and art and all that good stuff. All right, so the first clip I'm going to play is David sort of explaining to us about the painting, and it kind of gives, just so you all know too, right, like the reason it kind of sounds art gallery-ish is because we did it in the art gallery. We're really like kind of cultural explorers at this point, and I think we should feel really proud of like going on site and recording like that.
Oh, that was like my first on-site interview, sorry. And it was really cool. There, it is pretty echoey there.
Yeah, so just a heads up that the audio is a little echoey and you'll hear sort of like the background sound of the exhibition. So just ignore that and listen to the words because they're real good. So this is David speaking all about the Hazelwood Exhibition.
Wow. So this was in Hazelwood, is that right?
This was in Hazelwood. My understanding is this painting was situated in like an underground walkway that once the workers parked their cars and to get to work they walked through this walkway, and this painting was in the walkway.
Oh, wow.
The painting was commissioned in 1994 for the 30th anniversary of Hazelwood, but the interesting thing is that the painting is based on photographs that were provided by Hazelwood, and some of which we've got on display. But the painting was painted by a prisoner at Morwell River Prison, called a guy called Jerry Zabenko, and Hazelwood River Prison was really quite a low security prison, and most of the prisoners were involved with replanting and planting of trees and forests. But Jerry obviously had a painting background, so he created this artwork. The history of Hazelwood from its beginning as kind of farmland through to, the dredging, through to thinking about, at the far end, how they imagined the future in 1994 with some of the things that we're still talking about, like very fast trains. And there's an electric car on the far right as well. So this is very much in a kind of in a sort of a Soviet agitprop style.
It is, isn't it? Holy shit.
There's about 20...
That's so Chernobyl. It hurts my brain.
So I am going to get you, he just mentioned a thing called agitprop, which is the amalgamation of agitation and propaganda. So I got this definition from Tate Modern Museum, and I'm going to ask you to read it out.
Oh, yes, I love it. Agitprop is an enterprise set up by the Soviet Communist Party in 1920, intended to control and promote the ideological conditioning of the masses. The term is now used to refer to any cultural manifestation with an overtly political purpose.
Are using it in this. I think it's interesting if you have an agitprop style piece commissioned essentially by the company and the workers themselves to then hang in the hallway on the way to work. What does that mean?
Look, I think honestly, it's creepy to me. It feels like, they just like, I don't know, using that kind of style in a workplace, it makes it propaganda to me. It doesn't make it, it's like, working here is really great.
That's it. Like, it's like, I mean, I don't know this is an intention, but it does have a little like dystopian workplace vibes.
Yeah.
I think we should sort of just describe to like, I think what attracts me to this painting is just the sheer scale.
Yeah.
It's a big boy. Like that is not a small, but it's 8.5 meters by 2.4 meters. In terms of not diameter, that's a circle, but size,
length and height.
Yeah. Classic measurements, as you know. So that's it. And when you kind of come into the art gallery, it runs the full length of the back wall, which is like a huge, wide open room. So you really kind of get the sense of the scale of the piece. And I imagine and David talks a little bit about this more in the interview, but it was hanging in sort of the walkway where the workers would enter and exit the power station. So they're kind of like going past this every day. It's really interesting because David and the research team at the gallery, or the curatorial team at the gallery, were speaking about how it's kind of a mystery. So they have the record of him painting this huge agitprop style thing. And obviously with a last name like Zabenko, we're thinking maybe there's a connection there that his family might have been in the Soviet or area at the time. So maybe he even learned that. Again, that's not confirmed facts, but it doesn't seem impossible given the timeline. The actual mural was organised by Eileen Jean, who was the office prison visitor at Morwell River Prison, and was also on the organising committee, how convenient, with her husband, Ken Jean, a Hazelwood employee. So that's how it sort of came to be. But when you think about this guy who, again, Dave will talk a little bit about maybe what crime was committed, but he's not a violent criminal or anything. He's just at this prison farm, being asked to paint this huge 8.5 meter mural that's now sitting in an art gallery. What a turn of events. And who is this man?
Was he paid to do it? I doubt it. I think it would have just been part of his, contribution to society from this. So it's, I wonder then how you would evaluate that piece of work. That obviously is value to it.
We are certainly not art guys.
Yeah.
I would imagine that some of the value is attributed to the historical
significance and importance. Yeah.
I know. I just love that that's the history and that's who made this artwork. So we're going to hear a little bit more now from David about Gennady and where he came from and possibly how it all came about.
I haven't really been able to find out a lot. I believe he's passed away. I found references to him in a Eastern Melbourne Art Society in around 2000 as being their president at the time, and I reached out to that group, but they'd lost track of him. Wow. And I don't know if they knew. And I think he was in prison for fraud, for defrauding the Commonwealth. I think that's what it was. But I think it was some kind of business development grant that wasn't quite used in the right way.
I was wondering if it was did he lie to Centrelink?
No, I think, So, but I haven't really, I don't want to say too much and get it wrong and defame him, but that's what I haven't been able to really find out much. How
interesting.
But
it's a mystery.
And I haven't really been able to connect up with his family, but I've done, I've gone down Google rabbit holes and Facebook rabbit holes to try and find out, but I haven't really found out very much.
I did go down some Facebook rabbit holes. So, okay, what I want to do now, I've made a map of the painting. So just to describe it a little bit as well, right? So this painting sort of goes from the history that it runs sort of left to right. And if you follow it, it's sort of the whole history of Hazelwood, which I don't want to overstate, but gets me going. I'm wow, that whole painting is all the history right in one place. It's it's their history, I guess we have to keep in mind when we're looking at history, like who wrote the history, who painted the history. So we have to keep in mind that like this comes from, you know, the organization itself. But I think that's extremely telling on its, you know, itself. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to bring up my little drawing. And this is from a little bit of Facebook sleuthing, but also research from the Latrobe Regional Gallery team, who very kindly provided us a bunch of information. This is about the people who were in the painting. We're going to like go through and figure out like who's who and what's up with that.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like covering my face to stop myself from talking.
All right, so we're looking at a picture of the painting. Do you want to, for the people at home, kind of maybe just try to describe not who's in it, but just like the biggest strokes? Like, what are we looking at? What does it look like?
Sure. So we've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels that are all connected together. And it's like the beginning of the SEC to the end of the SEC in 1994. So the first thing that we see is like a horse and cart on like some soil. There's some people in construction hats looking at a map of some description. There's a waterway coming through. Then we see a dredger. Then there's some scientists doing some scientific studies of some description. That leads us to a coal conveyor belt, which is connected to a giant fist, which kind of...
The fist is the best.
The fist is the best bit. And it kind of acts as the center point of the painting, but it also breaks it into 4 unique kind of sections. So the top section is the power station itself, and we can see a lot of water. Side section is what I was just describing, which is like the ground and the dredger. Below it, there's some wildlife, some people at a control panel, some boats on the water. And then there's a really important section, which is what the electricity made at Hazelwood has the capacity to power. So we can see a whole city. I think it's the city of Melbourne. We can see some ladies doing some baking. Typical women in the fucking kitchen. Am I right?
Am I right, bro?
And then there's a light globe in a hand that's the weirdest bit. Anyway.
I love that bit. Like, what's that about?
It's coming from the fist. It's like, is it the other person's hand coming out of the fist?
Ew.
I don't know. It's confusing. And so all along this whole panel, like there's also a car, I should say, and like a few cars.
The greatest. It looks like Homer Simpson's car.
It does. But so all throughout this painting, there are like little framed pictures with people in it.
What I quickly do is we're just going to quickly go through the people who are in the painting in the little frames, just because I think some of them are like long-term plays and stuff, and it's good to kind of just be like, okay, who was the power station trying to show were like the primary players in its own understanding of its history. So on the far left, you want to describe that fella?
Well, when we were at the gallery and I Google lensed, it said it was JFK.
No, it was like Roosevelt.
No, who was the guy all the way with LBJ? It was LBJ. Lyndon B. Johnson. Is it Barry?
I don't know.
Well, it's Lyndon B. Johnson. So that's who it looks like. If you know who that is, that's what this guy looks like. It's like in a sepia-toned kind of picture.
It's not Lyndon B. Johnson.
It's not.
It's Vern Ripper. And he was Hazelwood's first power station superintendent.
There we go. Beautiful.
Yeah. Then we've also got, let's describe this guy.
So he kind of just looks like your standard white guy in a hat.
There's a little contention about this one. So Latrobe Regional Gallery actually says Campbell Houston is the guy under the security gate in the painting, but the Facebook group for Morwell Historical Society thinks it's this guy with the hat. So Campbell Houston is on this picture. I'm just not clear which guy. Maybe he's there twice.
Maybe.
Possible. But Campbell Houston was the chief engineer / construction engineer or 2IC of Latrobe Valley project.
Sure.
So up there as like an engineer. So he's represented. Do you want to describe this bloke?
We've got another kind of classic white guy with white hair in a blue tie, a blue suit jacket and some glasses. He's got like a nose and a chin and stuff and some ears. Typical face, classic face. And it's on a bit of a brown background and it's right next to the image of the city being powered and above the women in the kitchen.
So I don't know that there's a connection between him and the women, but this is another contentious one. So Latrobe Regional Gallery says that person is Bert Mee, who was the first station operations engineer. But the Facebook Morwell Historical Society, which again, it's Facebook sleuthing, so I'm not sure how reliable that would be, says that person was actually the SECV chairman from 1956 to 1971, Sir Willis Connolly. So
interesting.
Someone correct me if I'm wrong. If you're Bert Mee or Sir Willis Connolly, let me know in the comments below. Because Maybe that's you. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
You want to describe this powerful gentleman?
Okay, so it looks like Robert De Niro. Who's the Danny DeVito? That's what I meant to say. It looks like Danny DeVito, but science Danny DeVito. So he is definitely like putting shit into beakers and cooking things over Bunsen burners.
Like maximum science. It's very like science.
Yeah.
So that's Mac Dent. He's a station scientist.
Wow.
Yeah, he's doing. That's probably what's with the science.
With the science. I wonder if he looked like Danny DeVito in real life. Or is it something to do with his arm being above his forehead that we can't see his hair, and it makes him look like Danny DeVito because he's kind of bald?
He looks like Danny DeVito and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's got, like, the white hair. But I love that for a scientist. Like, I feel like that hair definitely must help with the science. I think.
Definitely.
What about this person?
So now we have another science guy. He is looking through a microscope. He's kind of like a reddy-haired, bearded fellow, also white, also wearing a blue, it looks like it might be a boiler suit, not a shirt. There's like a little painting in the background, and it looks like it's of a tropical island with like a palm tree.
This fellow is David Addis. He's the environment officer. He worked in the lab, worked with contracts and monitoring the pondage. Apparently there's like a story that we were told that they got him to pose all sciencey. Like, I'm sure he does use that, but they were like...
From the video, yeah.
Pose more sciencey. So that's what that picture is kind of reflecting. And apparently that's a poster of Hawaii in the background.
Amazing.
Which they think must have been in the office. So for you deep environment officer lovers out there, that's a tidbit just for you.
Yeah.
Poster art that they have up in the office. Do you want to describe these two gentlemen?
Sure. So basically we're looking into a snapshot of the power station from The Simpsons. Where Homer Simpson goes to work and there's
the parallels are endless.
They really are. And so there is like a guy standing at a bench with lots of buttons that looks like the desk that Homer Simpson stands in front of. There's another guy standing on the other side. Looks like maybe he's overseeing. And the person that's standing at the desk is like turning some knobs.
He really is. He's like that button guy. So behind the control panel, which that's what that is, apparently it's a control panel, is Ken Jean, and he's a charge engineer. And on the front of the panel is Scott Gillespie, unit controller, stage 2.
Amazing.
Stage 2 of what? I don't know. But probably something.
Yeah.
So they look very like, I don't know. I think it's interesting. So then we also got to note that like the 3 ladies and the gentleman with the young boy are yet to be identified. So I think typically women written out of history. Who are they?
Who cares? I care, obviously. But
obviously,
yeah.
No one does. So.
Yeah. So we can see this is kind of a slender portrait than the other ones as well. It is. But it's a guy who looks like he's in a really expensive jacket and with a very expensive hat. I don't know what those hats are called.
They told me it's a stock hat. But when
stock
I Googled
hat.
that, it just comes up with baseball caps.
It's not a stock hat. It's like a fedora kind of hat.
He's a fedora guy.
Yeah. And he looks kind of eccentric.
So this is Alf Ronald. I believe you know the story. We're all like, okay.
Yeah.
Ready for some like urban myth building around Morwell. What is Alf Ronald famous for?
Alf Ronald is famous for driving his Rolls Royce around a paddock and feeding the animals in his paddock hay out of a Rolls Royce.
Classic.
That's isn't that weird?
So he's actually the person who owned the land that Hazelwood built on. But yeah, apparently he was like, I actually found in the shout out again to the Morwell Historical Society, people in the comments saying they remembered maybe going to work with their dad or something and like seeing him.
I saw that too.
Like, oh my God, it's real. Confirmed.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
And I thought this would be a good time to point out as well. We do not, I tried to research this before the episode, but we don't know how Alf Ronald acquired the land, but it was clearly stolen from the Aboriginal people somewhere along the line. There's Aboriginal people are definitely missing from this portrait. So, yeah, but I guess
anyone who's not white.
Not white, yeah. There's lots of white people all over this portrait. And
I guess just to reiterate again, like this painting is obviously like of its time and it's essentially like a piece from the power industry.
Yeah.
About the power industry.
It's the history of the power industry according to the power industry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're just, obviously keeping that in mind. So that's what the art piece looks like.
Look, it looks really powerful. It's a really powerful piece. I know I feel weird saying that because it's about power. Hey, Coalface listeners. In the following clip, I misspoke. I should have named the Bryakkalung people of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation as I know it was their land that was stolen. I will include some resources in the show notes about demonstrating inclusive and respectful language when referring to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, as well as some further reading about the Gunai-Kurnai Nation. Back to the episode. But it really is. And like you can see that from the raised fist and the way that they've like, don't know if I've said that there's like lightning bolts or electricity.
Did you forget the lightning bolts?
Like just pumping out of that fist or whatever. But
it's charged.
It's
like,
charged. Yeah, it is fully charged.
I mean, also the fist is such a democracy. It's such a people power. It's such a
it's the wrong way around though. So like that way, I don't know the actual symbolism, but the sign like for revolution is a clenched fist that way. This is up. So I don't know. It would be interesting to know the difference. And also just going to point out that there's like a power station at the base of the hand, which I only just noticed. I feel like it's one of those images, the more you look at it, the more you'll see.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. So we'll definitely chuck it up, but it's got so many little pockets, so many little, I mean, I got the opportunity to film it for a project we're working on in general, and every frame of this is a painting in itself. Like that every little moment is like its own little vignette or little story.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so kind of transfixing. This painting is sort of like the hero piece for this exhibition. And David's going to talk a little bit more about sort of reason that they put on the exhibition and sort of the response that the town had. Because I think about, a piece this powerful coming out of the industry into the public space so other people can engage with it. So David's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
So this painting was given to us by Angie, the owners of Hazelwood, a couple of years ago as part of their kind of winding down of the operations of the place. And of course, our collection here at Latrobe Regional Gallery has a lot of artworks that talk about industry and coal-powered power stations. So it's a really important painting for us to have. And what we've done with the painting is we've wrapped historical material around it to give it a kind of a broader context. But really, I think most people understand that coal is at the end of its useful life in terms of an electricity generation, and I think most people accept that now. But the issue now is now what, and how do we provide a transition that continues to provide employment, continues to build a future for the people that wish to stay here, that wish to have their children stay here. It's a complex issue when you shut down such a large industry, and we all know why, and we all understand its importance of why, but there's a lot of people to be taken into account and their families. So we've tried to kind of talk about the valley through another exhibition next door, and we also tried to think about the people by providing this historical material. We also had recently a morning tea where we had about 40 former workers come and chat to each other about working, and it's a group that's been going for some time, that they meet I think every couple of weeks or once a month to talk about their work at Hazelwood, and it's a way of keeping that connection together, but it's also a way of looking after each other to make sure that they're kind of all healthy and well mentally as much as anything else. So it's not something that's been driven by the gallery, but the workers themselves have put that together, which is fantastic. So it just reinforces the kind of the human dimension.
What he's sort of talking about there, and what I interpret from that, like Morwell feels like it's got kind of like a healing that needs to happen. And I don't know if you want to tell everyone about, we also were invited to a talk at the art gallery, but I think the talk, it was fascinating, it had heaps of interesting points, but it was the first time for me maybe that I had the fact that it isn't a monolith of people being like, SEC was perfect and good. So do you want to kind of describe?
Yeah, I can in fact do that. So yeah, as you said, we went to the art gallery and there was, I think, a panel of 3 people and also an MC, a moderator. And so the MC was asking everyone their questions, and there was quite a few older people in the audience who had worked at the SEC. And when it kind of came down to question time, quite a few people stood up and said, were trying to have their say about their experience in the SEC. And there was one gentleman in particular that said something along the lines of, that was all well and good for you working in head office, but for the workers on the ground, it wasn't a cushy job. It wasn't so easy, comfortable, and all of that sort of thing. And he talked quite a bit, but I was just my COVID was hitting, so I don't recall, but it really was striking to me that he was there with a negative experience. Yeah, I think it's a diverse there's a diverse pool of opinion there. And look, if anyone from the SSE is listening, we'd love to talk to you. Like we always say this, and maybe no one will ever contact us, but please, like, coalfacepod@gmail.com, like fall into our inbox or whatever. Like, we'd love to chat with you.
I know this is like, we all know this about history, but it is all about like who's writing it, who's like, you cannot have things without bias. We cannot have stories without narrative structure, you know, and shaped through people's perspectives. But it does feel like every time I'm reminded of that, I'm always surprised, where I'm like, oh yeah, there's people who didn't have positive experience.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not this like dreamy, like it's, you know, history is complicated, people's perspectives are complicated. But I think what struck me was that the gallery had facilitated what felt like a very necessary public trauma, and like there feels like there's more that needs to be said.
I would love to have, like, I think you could even do it at like Kernot Hall, which is like a big hall.
It's like a porny town hall.
It is. It totally is. But I think it would be great to have that and just invite people who are from the SEC or from the power industry and just have everyone come and have their say. Yeah. Have a moderator there. You can like write your name down if you've got something to say, but like a public town forum about it, because I think you're right there in saying there's so many people with this trauma about this experience. And even like when Hazelwood shut down, all the people that lost their jobs when they weren't expecting to lose their jobs just yet, and all of that. So I think that is definitely something that we need to make a space for.
It feels like this exhibition maybe wasn't the first, but it definitely was more of a large-scale public way to have that start. But if you aren't able to have your history recorded, I mean, often people feel, you know, unheard.
Well, I think that is the case everywhere. Yeah. Like it's, still, if you can be invited and still not feel welcome.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting to find a way to facilitate that, where even perspectives that are maybe not the mainstream are able to be heard, but then you've got that complexity of like platforming. So I'm not sure the solution. Yeah. I'm just some guy. All I know was going to that talk, super interesting, and a lot of like powerful feelings were like
so many. I wasn't expecting to like feel sadness when we went. And I distinctly remember, particularly when this gentleman who I don't know the name of was talking, I felt really sad.
Well, he was talking about, and I mean, like, maybe we can cut this out if it's not appropriate, but he was talking about like the physical toll on his body and the consequence. Like, he's now a much older person, like maybe 70 or 80, living with the physicality of someone who had to do really repetitive tasks with not a lot of oversight. And I think knowing how rigorous, I mean, again, I imagine there's still corners cut and things like that, but knowing how rigorous all that health and safety and OS stuff is now, I can only imagine what it must have been like.
Then
60s,
people still get killed in the power station today.
Yeah, so we mustn't forget like these are dirty and dangerous.
Yeah, they are.
Like, I don't like, again, sitting in our office doing our little podcast. Like, it's so easy to be like, what? Like, you know, just
to make it safe,
the buttons or whatever. I think that's what's interesting. Like, all of the people in this painting are doing like no one's doing any, like no one's like reaching.
No one's doing the backbreaking work. Yeah. And so to throw back to our episode with Hayley, where we talked about Hayley's grandfather and my grandfather a bit too. Like, Hayley's grandfather literally was like manning a shovel and taking the shovel out of the ground. That's backbreaking work. I don't know if anyone's dug a hole before, but as someone who lives on a farm, I've had to dig a hole and it's cooked. And like, there's a reason people are buried in shallow graves. It's because digging holes is hard.
It's so hard.
Like,
whoever invented that, like,
the dredger or the digger, I know, but there is that a whole there's a whole lot of people that wouldn't have had that even cushy thingy, and my grandpa went deaf on the dredger, so so
I guess like good stark reminder of that history isn't always, you know, the most obvious story, and that listening to these other narratives is definitely eye-opening
and very important
and a privilege. So on a completely wild pivot, I want to talk about climate change.
Yay!
So I think...
Is this distressing? Yes, it is.
Always distressing. So David's going to speak a little bit about the impact of climate and sort of like, in his previous clip, we started talking about, you know, what's next. Here's what he has to say about that whole picture.
Cool.
For us, this exhibition is a bit like a marker. This time has passed. You know, the kind of language that's used in that video about the wonderful nature of coal and generating power for Victoria and Australia, that language is now gone. And so this exhibition sort of, for us, puts a kind of a line in the sand. And downstairs in Gallery 1, there's an exhibition that uses solar and wind power to generate a different kind of activity. So there's some musical notes that are played through lights lighting up solar panels. There's a fan imitating the wind power to generate some flapping, and there's magnets, and that's meant to be like a metaphorical look at this is a kind of wit and invention and creativity that we now need to move forward. So that exhibition's timing with this is not an accident.
When I went with my nibblings, like they loved this piece as well. And we went to the upstairs and they weren't so keen on that. So I didn't spend a lot of time there. It was a bit too above their pay grade. They're like 5 and 4. So, it wasn't moving. It wasn't sound.
Yeah.
But even like with the lens of going with my nibblings, I did not connect the two. Like it wasn't until that conversation where I was like, oh my God, it is on purpose.
Because, you don't have, like, when you're just a patron, you don't think about that stuff. But here, I wasn't like about the thought plan. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, and which is brilliant. So good work.
Smart.
Good work.
Yeah. Next, David's kind of going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics, poverty tourism.
Woohoo! Love me some poverty tourism.
Wow. Yeah, this particular exhibition has been very popular, and the best way of promoting exhibitions really is to get people to talk about them, because word of mouth has been very strong on this exhibition. And, one of the things that sometimes happens here is that we will have artists come to the Valley to do a project, and they won't have any kind of real understanding of the Valley, and they'll say, we want to do a project about the industry here. And it's always raises a little bit of a yellow light for me.
1,000%. Yeah.
Don't come here and tell us how bad this is.
Yes.
Don't treat us like we're kind of exotic victims. That it's actually far more layered and complex than that. And our art collection's got a lot of work about industry, and I think for us, we perhaps might not do a lot more work about the coal industry and the mining industry. We might be trying to kind of look to other things now. So we might start looking at, environment, water, the land through another kind of lens. It's kind of time to move on.
Don't come and treat us like exotic. What do you say? Exotic victims.
Exotic victims. Yeah,
wow.
wow.
Like a beautiful exotic victim. But I thought that was a really interesting point.
I think it is as well. And I think that's kind of why we're doing this. This is why we've started talking about the place that we live.
Yes.
Because of this same thing, people coming and talking about our place.
I feel like across all of our episodes now, we've spoken to people across like all industries of like science and engineering and now the arts, and they kind of touch on the same thing without prompting, right? So they're speaking about the idea that, don't you come here and tell us how to live our lives, but also like the town does know. It's not like we're not aware of what's going on, right? We're not like, what's great? Cool.
We're living
awesome.
it.
Yeah, we're living through it. So I feel like that now is like a common theme.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like also to caveat that some people do want a new power station to be built for the purpose of coal. And there is like nuanced discussion about that as well. But like we know that the power stations we have can't keep going as a general rule. Yes. Speaking
of the power stations, David next makes this like really interesting point about the importance of the iconic chimneys. So I'm going to let him talk about that, and then I feel like we'll have to discuss.
We've put the video up of the chimneys coming down, the 8 chimneys, and we've put this exhibition in a gallery that's got 8 columns. As a lot of people in Morwell did, when those chimneys came down, I was on the roof of this building looking at it, and the police next door were at the top of on their roof watching it, and cars were by the side of the freeway watching the chimneys come down, because those chimneys were iconic for anyone who's grown up and lived in this area. It's kind of like a marker of home, and where your home is in relation to those chimneys. So for those chimneys to come down is kind of taking part of people's identity away.
Obsessed.
Absolutely.
I love it when someone just is like nails the point so succinctly. Yeah. What you're trying to say. So I think we've touched on the chimneys a little bit before, but it's also they feature heavily in the Hazelwood painting. Obviously, they're the Hazelwood chimneys. There's 8 of them. And as you roll into the valley, they used to be so prominent on the landscape, and now they're gone.
Totally gone. And I'm still not adapted to it. Like, my mind still thinks they're there.
Yeah. You got to look up and you expect them to be like, you could see them from the street, you could see them from the art gallery.
Yeah. And a shout out to my hairdresser when I was telling, and Antoine Hair and Trafalgar, they're great. But when I was telling them what I do and that I do this podcast, their story of how they had like 50 people over for a party in their backyard to watch the smokestacks fall came up. And like, that's like a story that we've heard before. Yeah. It's a massive deal for our area to have these things no longer there. And the question of like what to replace them with. And now we've got like the wind farm approval for in that similar locations. Yeah. That's going to be an epic change.
It feels very against my nature to be like, oh man, I missed the side of the power station. It's like, are we like Stockholm syndrome? That was good. But it's so, I think we just grew up with it. It's such an iconic thing on the landscape that obviously I'm not like, yay, coal industry, but also I guess it was like the symbol of, I guess, home for us as occupiers of this land.
Yeah. Look, and I think that's bang on. And it isn't about the actual coal station, but there's something about like the industrial wasteland, like the industrial decay or whatever of it. Yeah. Like that you just kind of get used to it. And like, I remember, for example, I used to live in Morwell, as everyone knows, and then I moved to Footscray. And there was something about Morwell and Footscray that's really similar. It's like it's kind of multicultural, it's kind of like concretey. And I felt at home in Footscray because I'd lived in Morwell and it reminded me of that. And there's just something iconic about like all of this power station architecture and the concrete and that weird yellowy color that they seem to use in all of the buildings.
It is like a 60s brutalist side of things. So when I first moved to the city, I moved to Hawkesburn, which is like basically Toorak, and I felt so out of place.
Right.
And I think there's something comforting, and I don't know if that's like generational trauma of being like, we belong down here rather than like, we can't make it. But there is something comforting about this area. Like everyone is like, again, I don't want to make it seem like it's a halcyon, dreamy dream world, but it does feel like aesthetically the structure and I'm going to call it ugly, like the ugliness.
Yeah.
And like, I like it, but it is kind of ugly.
Yeah.
It kind of works for my heart.
It works for me too. And it's kind of, if I think about going into Myers in the city and the whiteness and the brightness and the lightness of everything, it makes me feel like dirty in comparison. Like, like just looking at my exactly. And I feel like other places are kind of like that, but in Morwell, I feel like I fit in with the gunginess of it all. And like, you know, you already know that I'm obsessed with the tiles that are left from like, I bring this up all the time, but in Morwell, there's like just pockets of old tiles that are attached to shop fronts still, because they've never properly like reworked the fronts. It's like always been renovated inside, but they're these tiles that I could probably identify from like the 50s onwards.
Yeah, definitely.
And and that I just love that. I love there's little bits of history where it's otherwise been
and that's what it's like. I love that urban exploring and like rural and suburban decay. So I think like being surrounded by that, not that we're perpetually decaying again, sure, hope and everything. Yeah. But there is something very satisfying about being surrounded by like this Australian Gothic
totally
sort of thing. I mean, this whole episode is centered around basically the healing power of art. I don't want to sound like an art therapist, but I obviously am now. So I'll put my little art therapy hat on. And
I feel healed.
Yeah, I feel healed. We're going to do some spray paint next. It's going to be really good. We're going to work through some anger. Dave is going to speak a little bit about like the importance of space and exhibitions and how that can contribute to healing.
Yeah, I guess it has a role in both of those things. And I guess that also for people who've kind of moved into the district in recent years, it provides a bit of context. For example, I didn't grow up here, but when you look at this old video talking about, you know, it's video talking about how marvellous Hazelwood is and how people should come and work in the Latrobe Valley and what's on offer. But there's also there's a scene of people crossing the street which shows kind of Morwell as quite a lively, energetic town.
Yes.
And there's information in there that Morwell was the largest town in this area.
Yeah.
It was bigger than Traralgon. It was more vibrant than Traralgon, whereas you wouldn't have that perspective today.
I've got like a visual thing I want to do with you right now.
Okay.
So are you familiar with Pinterest?
I am familiar with Pinterest.
I want you to just like pin me a board of Morwell, how you think people perceived Morwell back in the day when it was like like he just described it as vibrant. I don't know that we would say that now. Right?
We definitely wouldn't.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to do we're going to describe your visual Pinterest, just like the start. You don't have to it's not an essay, but like what would you do? And then we're going to get you to do a Pinterest of how you would do the vibe now. If you're making like a mood board about just the vibes.
Sure. All right, so on my thriving Morwell OG Pinterest.
This is 50s, this is 60s.
Yeah, so this is before the building of Mid-Valley. There is only one town centre.
Mid-Valley?
I have it on good authority that the building of Mid-Valley is one of the reasons that the town centre of Morwell failed.
Okay, confirmed.
Yeah, so, on good authority, I said allegedly. But no, when you think about it, right? So the town centre is the train station. That's like where the town centre of Morwell is. There is two parts of town. On one side of the town is like the little laundromat, and there's like a lighting shop and a bank, and there's like a little church street, like with some little tiny like shops or whatever. That's one side. The other side was like the hip hop happening spot where you had like your big supermarket, where the art gallery is, where the police station is, where heaps of like shops were. The McRoberts, the Book Nook, yeah,
the seed store.
The seed store. So I just learnt about McRoberts, the seed and grain store that's been there for over 100 years.
I'm
Josie,
holding my notes.
I know.
Did you ever get taken there by like your dad to be like, I don't know why we ever needed to go there, but we would go to get like, I don't know, rabbit food.
We would go.
Rabbit. It was so intensely smelly in there.
It is really smelly in there. I went with my mum, and my mum would bring in like leaf clippings and be like, this plant has a disease. And the guy who runs it at the moment is like a person who, a horticulturalist, so he knew about the disease and stuff too. So then he'd mix up a thing and we'd take it home and treat the disease. But it has been there for over 100 years. Like it moved from right near the train station to somewhere else. But yeah, the town itself, it was divided first when the train station came through. So before that, it was like a whole one central town. I'm not sure if I can Pinterest board this precisely.
No, but we can do. But you've gone off topic. Like, do why Mid-Valley is terrible.
Sure, and then go back.
You're going to describe some images that would reflect.
Cool. All right, let's do that.
Morwell.
So the first division of Morwell was the train line. So that divided the town centre into two parts. And then the second division came when Mid-Valley got built, which put all shops that would otherwise have been in the town centre into this area away from town, which wasn't easily accessible.
Yes,
it's only accessible.
The car. It's isolated. It's like not good.
And to the estates that were built there. So it's really terrible urban planning. So now that like Morwell's kind of a sprawl, but it's just each area, isn't strong enough to manifest on its own. Yeah.
I agree. So I feel like Morwell's golden era, like, again, for white people, was like 50s, 60s sort of peak before any of that in the 80s and stuff, like with the end of the SEC. So if you would sort of give me like top 5 images that sort of depict what you think people, because the way that my nana described it was like, everyone's doing the Charleston in the streets. It's like gold rain from the sky. Like,
okay.
What does it look like?
Okay, I'm going to say blue light disco.
All right.
So there was like a happening blue light disco every other weekend or whatever.
I heard that. My mum said that life was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
It wasn't
the Rainbow Room, that's a little later, but like there's that pub there that was popping off. There is also like ladies in fancy dresses with shopping bags of more fancy dresses.
Yes, it wasn't so casual maybe.
No, not so casual. Well, that's, I think all eras bygone, they seem fancier or whatever. Like you had to dress a certain way. Churches were really big too. So like the Sacred Heart Church was built in around the 60s. And that was,
tell because it's that brick stuff.
Yeah, and there was the Sacred Heart School. So like churches, schools, shopping, people doing the Charleston in the street, blue light discos. What else we got? Probably not horse and carts, but like fancy as fuck cars, like really nice Ford cars.
It felt like there was money. And like possibility.
Yeah. Then there was White City, the perfectly white city.
Wait, what?
So White City, as it was known, was an area of workers' houses that were built before, like kind of in the same architectural style as your lawn, but they were workers' houses, and it was known as White City. And so my grandparents like lived in a house in White City while they were building their house outside of White City. Then it was all demolished for coal as well.
So
really, they brought it up at the talk we were at. So yeah. It seems like another one of those instances where the town planning was really good and then it just freaking went to shit. Like it, and then they just stopped thinking it through.
Nah.
Yeah,
it's like when you get bored of your SimCity station. Like, you know what? I put the poo plant right in the middle of town.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take all the doors away and see what happens. There's no fridge anymore.
More like the town where they took all the doors away, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
All right, so paint me the picture of the Pinterest board. If more was a vibe today, what are we thinking?
Okay, so I'm gonna.
This is going public, so
I know I'm really considering that.
Yes,
in my talking. Okay, so there are a lot of empty shop fronts. There are a lot of failed businesses or whatever in the town. There are also little pockets of gentrification. There are fancy people clothes stores. So then there's like some art galleries that have popped up and coffee shops that have popped up. But then there's also like this giant bus shelter that hasn't been updated for a long time.
Yeah.
It's like kind of decaying, but there's basically like wealth juxtaposed to extreme poverty, trauma and addiction as well.
So reblogging images, it does feel like pictures of like Ken Park or like abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
But then also like nice handbag.
Yeah. And there's Centrelink, can't go without that. There's the Medicare Centre as well.
That Centrelink building is a special kind of like, Morwell has a very, and I don't know the history of these buildings, but they look very municipal.
They're
do. Very like 1990s
and
home improvement, someone's school administration building look.
Yeah.
Kind of feel.
And I've got to say too, there's a lot of like hospital-y things in Morwell. So there's a lot of support services. There's like doctors' clinics, mental health support services, law support services, more than Traralgon and more than in Moe. I feel like that makes up a big portion of that. There's also op shops, like quite a few op shops. So I think that it's like kind of a wealth and poverty Pinterest board and a growth and decay.
I was going to say what it makes me think is like, it's like the living articulation of sort of like faded glory, people it's like a very utilitarian place.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of buildings that were originally built for beauty because there was money and wealth, and people are still making the most of those spaces. But now there's just a lot of utility. Like there's a lot of 60s shop fronts that haven't been updated or 80s shop fronts.
That's it.
That are just built very like, just like a plain, like just like a square.
Yeah.
But because they're abandoned or not occupied, if there's just a sort of a void or something.
Yeah.
And again, I realize like the irony of like we're sitting on a void with the voids.
It's true.
There is just like a void.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. There's like
there really is.
I think that's a pretty good description of like the two different vibes. So I think it's interesting hearing the idea that people could come here, go to an exhibition to try to get up to speed with the fact that because if you moved here now, I don't know if you'd be like, oh my God, was this like at one point?
I'm like, I feel like the gentrification is happening a lot, but I also think it's failing too because there are the shops that start and then close down.
I think know that it's typical gentrification either.
Yeah.
That's typically when housing prices go up.
Right, and that's not happening.
Other people move in. I feel like instead of gentrification, we've got people like, again, making the best of it.
Yeah,
like people who are wanting to make a difference, which feels kind of distinctly different to, again, someone who comes in from somewhere else who's got a bunch of money who's like, I'm going to make this better.
Yeah, true.
I think the impact might be the same in that people who trying to make it better from here, make things better.
Yeah.
And therefore maybe the prices go up, but it doesn't seem like a typical.
I think you're right there, but
But you're right.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. To round out, we love asking people what their hopes are.
Mm-hmm.
We're very hopeful people. Actually, mostly I'm despondent, and then I like other people's hope to just like fill me up.
Yeah.
So I asked David to top up my hope bottle and see how much hope he could give us. So this is what he had to say about what's next.
Well, I guess, I just hope that we can generate a future through solar and wind power and those contemporary technologies that, we've got all the wires run from here. Let's embrace it and let's create work and a future for people.
What role do you feel art plays in that?
I think, art kind of can help open other ways of thinking and looking at the world, and it can kind of point to the notion to be inventive and not be stuck in your ways, I guess, is what art can do, can kind of open the curtains.
Yeah. I mean, your institution here is on the main street in Morwell, where the view used to be of Hazelwood. How do you feel situationally your role of this gallery is in order to help foster that change?
I guess the director, Beck Cole, and I are really working hard on trying to link what we do to the community and the community's history and the community's interests. But we want to do that through contemporary art. So we're working hard to kind of make it accessible. So, you know, in this particular suite of exhibitions, we've deliberately linked, you know, quite a contemporary approach by Michael Pryor and his installation that uses solar and wind and the powers of the earth, like magnetism, to the history of Hazelwood and the history of this area. It's quite a deliberate link to ask questions and create a conversation about other ways. So very much we want to be embedded in that community conversation, and we want to drive that community conversation.
I want to be driven. I was thinking, drive me, David, now.
Tell me what's next. Tell me what the answers are. I know how good. Sometimes I just fantasize about, like, instead of this being a wicked problem, it's just like a super easy one. And we're like, you know what? It's all fine. And they're just going to do this. And, like, here's a check from the government, Josie.
That would be great.
That doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen.
No, it doesn't. I think it's going to drag on for a little bit too long.
Maybe the, you know, crushing pressure of climate change will finally maybe speed up a little bit. I don't know. So that was our episode about art and the exhibition. And I hope that if you want a bit of, like, a visual journey through Hazelwood and the exhibition. So unfortunately that exhibition has ended. So we didn't finish this episode
because COVID.
Yeah. So we'd like to thank the Big C, which is also now known as
COVID.
But good news is the Latrobe Regional Gallery is a freaking institution and it's on the corner and it has so many cool things coming up. You can follow them on all of their social media platforms. We'll put the links in the show notes and you can go and check out some art and experience very accessible exhibitions that will, you know, open your mind to new possibilities.
And I've just, on that access note, I think that the gallery is completely accessible to people in wheelchairs. They even have a lift to get you to the upper realms and ramps and things. Their bathrooms are disability friendly, so it is an accessible space. And the people that work there are really informative. So if you need to know something about the art, you can go and ask.
Yes. I think that's the other thing we should say. Like, sometimes institutions can feel institution-y. Gallery is really committed to sort of like breaking down that accessibility, so you can go and you can ask questions and feel engaged.
Yeah.
Not feel like it's not for you. Also, they have wine and cheese nights occasionally, so keep an eye on their social medias for those.
Yeah.
We should probably do a special thanks as well to David and the team. So we should also thank Gabriella Duffy and Rebecca Dalty for all their help in giving us information about this episode. And also a big shout out to the Morwell Historical Society Facebook group because it's always useful and I love their work. Thank you again to the Latrobe Regional Gallery, David and the team for being so generous with your time. You can find our resources in the show notes for this episode.
The music for Coalface is by Anonymous 420 and Loyalty Freak Music. The series is written, edited and produced by Josie Hess and Stephanie Sabrinskis.
If you like what you heard, you can find us on Instagram at coalfacepod or send us an email to coalfacepodcast@gmail.com.
Look out for the next episode of Coalface.